Hello there. I try not to start every video the same, and it seems like, nevertheless, I always start with, hello there. I know every once in a while I get a howdy in there and various other things, but I don't seem to be as good at variety as I wish I was. And please don't misunderstand me. There are people who have channels who begin every single video with the same script, 2 or 3 sentences verbatim every time. Justin Peters is one. Dave McKeegan. Those are the two that spring to mind. But there's nothing wrong with it. I don't prefer it, but they do it naturally, and if you hadn't seen several of their videos, you'd never know it's a canned opening. But that is totally beside my point, and so am I, and that's nothing new. No, I was never a cheerleader. Don't believe me. They want people better than me. Tonight, as I record, I say tonight, it is 12:07, barely Tuesday morning. But tonight, I'm continuing to rebuild my Whisky Basics playlist. If I am not mistaken, this is video 11 of 36 that I have to re-record because somehow, I don't know how, I deleted the whole thing. Oh well. So tonight, re-recording this particular video, number 11 if I remember right. Now if you saw the... I'm not pouring yet, so we won't block me. Although you are perfectly free to block me if you think I'm totally boring, insufferable, what have you. That's part of free speech. I have the right to speak my mind. You have the right not to listen. But in the video I did last night and uploaded, I believe number 10, I finished a bottle of Wild Turkey 101 8-year. Tonight, I'm going to finish a bottle of Bulleit 10-year. I did not plan it this way. I didn't even know if I was going to do a video tonight, but I got through the channels I subscribe to here on YouTube and said, I got time. Let me do a video. So I have the glass where I can see on the screen the level it's at, but I'm just going to go ahead and pour the whole thing in, unless it turns out to be far more than I expect, and it ain't. That's the last of the Bulleit 10-year. She's now a dead soldier. There are things that are she. I got a shift. I never wind up in the right place the first time. A ship is a she. You know, the Constitution takes her turn around in Boston Harbor. I believe it's twice a year. The Yorktown at the battle, was it Midway or the Coral Sea? She hoisted a signal flag saying, my speed 10. And for Southerners, we use she a lot. You know, the car just won't turn over. She ain't getting no far. Or a bottle of whiskey is gone. She's empty. Or it looks like it's gonna have a real toad strangler. She's a-fixin' to rain. But what am I going to talk about tonight? It's not going to be a sipping and talking. As I've said, this is rebuilding the Whisky Basics series. It's not going to be a review. I'm not going to review this bottle here, not on the last glass. Rather, I'm going to, and if you've been watching this far, I have not only mentioned it, but you've seen it for yourself, that the format of the Whisky Basics series is I ask a question and then I answer it. I'm not going to pretend to do John Houseman. I tried it in an earlier video. It didn't work. I'm not good at that. I can imitate everything except reality. I try to imitate reality and it's fake. Imitation that's fake. Who would have thought it? But the question tonight, all my silliness and ridiculousness and downright craziness aside, is what are, move my notes so I can read it, what are unicorns, what is allocated whiskey, what are dusty bottles, or dusties. And my first thought is to say, there are things you shouldn't worry about in the video. That would not be good. You would be saying, wait a minute, he's supposed to tell us things and he ain't told us nan thing. Tain't told us nothing at all. You'd be right. I like regular Bullet. I really like the Bullet barrel strength. This is number 3 on the list of Bullet whiskeys that I've had. It's just not, it's 10 years old, older than the regular orange label Bullet bourbon. It's not as strong as the barrel strength, obviously. And it's not, to me, it's just not as good. It's good, but not up to their level. Like the guy who comes in 20th in a NASCAR Cup Series race, and who that would be these days, I don't know. Long as they reject my heritage and my ancestors, I reject them. But whoever comes in 20th is coming in 20th. But to be 20th place at that level means you are extremely good and you can whop just about everybody at lower levels. So when I say this, the other 2 Bullets that I've had, I like better than this. I'm not saying it's bad. It just isn't up at that top level. But what's a unicorn? Well, a unicorn is a creature with one horn coming out of its head, looks like a horse, but it has cloven hooves, like a deer. You look at medieval paintings of unicorns, and I didn't realize this till the past couple of years or so, they mostly have cloven hooves. So there are differences between unicorns and horses besides that spiral horn. Now these days all the kiddies like unicorns. At one time back in the Middle Ages, they weren't quite so cuddly. They were kind of fierce and scary. The thing is, though, a unicorn is a mythical critter. They ain't no such actual thing, although you could sometimes mistake a rhinoceros for a unicorn, perhaps. Or if you catch an aurochs, an extinct, huge wild ox of Europe, the 2 horns might look like one. The narwhal, or narwhal, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, is a whale up in the Arctic where one tooth grows out through its snout, and it's a spiral thing and it sticks out like a spear. And there is a speculation that that's what gave rise to the pictures of the unicorn horn. But a unicorn is a mythical creature. When it comes to whiskey, a unicorn is something you just can't find. Now, some things might be unicorns everywhere. I don't care if you're in Duluth, Minnesota, Los Angeles, California, Savannah, Georgia, Kittery, Maine, or here in Albuquerque, New Mexico, you ain't going to walk into your favorite liquor store and find a case of Pappy Van Winkle 23 year sitting on the shelf. They're not going to get a case if they get any at all. Well, they might get a case. But that's one of those bottles you hear about. You know, some people actually have them, but you're never going to see one in all your born days. I have no expectations of ever being in the same county or even the same state as a Pappy 23. And there are others. Blanton's is kind of a unicorn. You know, there's the stereotype of what they call taters. Stick the head in the door of the liquor store. Got any Blantons? Nope, no Blantons. Okay, bye. Which is not how you should do things. And if I remember correctly from the first time I did this playlist, I have a video that I'll record later on building a relationship with a liquor store. Not like a grocery store, although if you shop in the same grocery store all the time, you're going to get to know the people. But if you walk in, they don't have what you want, you walk back out, nobody thinks anything of it. In a liquor store, it's a little bit different, and I'm not going to go into why. But don't just pop your head in and say, got any Blantons? Got any Pappy? Got any this, that? Nope. Go look for it on the shelf, or if they have the expensive stuff in a lock case, go look there. But, and this is where I'll end this, buy something. This is 45.6, 91.2 proof, 45.6 alcohol by volume. So it is not terribly strong, it's not terribly viscous, it's just good bourbon. So a unicorn is something you ain't gonna find unless you get extremely lucky. I am not extremely lucky. What's an allocated bottle? Well, there is overlap between unicorns and allocated bottles because the unicorns are going to be usually, if not always, allocated. Now, what does that mean? Well, take the Pappy 23 that I was talking about. 23 years old is high age for a bourbon. There's Scotch whiskey where that's not all that particularly high. You know, they routinely sell 10, 12, 15-year-old Scotch, whereas those would be moving into premium territory for bourbon. The climate and the barrels make a difference in how quickly whiskey is ready. Now, the fact that 23 years old is old for a bourbon is relevant because you take a barrel, you put it in the rick house, it has 50 gallons in there. Each year, the level goes down. Evaporation. A barrel is not airtight. You know, you put 50 gallons in a steel drum, screw in the bung down tight, nothing will evaporate. Same with a plastic barrel. A wooden barrel, and this is essential to aging, is going to lose through evaporation. Nothing so crass as a leak, although barrels can leak, but it evaporates, what they call the angel share. And over time, you can lose half, 2/3 of the barrel to the angel share. Now, as this is happening in, say, a Kentucky climate, because of the factors of temperature and humidity, they affect evaporation. You know, in Scotland, the proof will go down because more alcohol evaporates in water. In Kentucky, in climates like that, the proof will go up because more water than alcohol is evaporating. So the volume in the barrel is going down. The proof is going up, but the volume is going down. Where you started out with 50, you might have 25 gallons when you dump it. You might have fewer than that. Now suppose materials, labor, electric bill, all that meant that to put that barrel into the warehouse took $200. Well, $200 divided by 50 gallons is, I don't know. I can't do the math in my head, and my calculator's right there on my phone where I'm recording. But let's do this another way. Let's say that to put that barrel in the warehouse cost $10 a gallon. You got $50, 50 gallons times $10, it costs $500 to put the barrel in the warehouse. Now again, we're including materials, distilling, price of the barrel, all this is going into this price, and I'm making numbers up out of my head to illustrate the principle. As the volume goes down, that $500 now has to divide amongst not 50 gallons, but 25 gallons, which means instead of $10 a gallon, for the gallons you have, it costs $20 to put that barrel in the warehouse. You have to charge $20 a gallon just to break even. Then there are many factors that go into the profit margin or the markup. Apparently they're different. When it comes to math, I know 2 + 2 = 5, and they tell me that's not even right. I am not a mathematician, and I could have worked at it from birth on till now when I'm 65, and I would still not be a mathematician. But the point is, as the volume goes down, the price per gallon just to break even goes up. And the amount of whiskey has gone down. So you got 25 gallons left. Well, if you proof it down to half of barrel proof, say it's 125 proof in the barrel, you proof it back to 50 gallons, that drops the proof by half, which is 62.5 proof. Am I doing the math right? Somehow that doesn't seem right. 125 divided by 2. 12. Whiskey's got to be 80 proof to be whiskey, so you can't proof it down to double the volume. You can't bring it back to 50 gallons. So, although you've increased the volume some by tempering it, you're still going to have to charge more. Plus, you only have however many gallons you have. Just for grins and giggles, we'll say we got it back up to 50 gallons. But you don't have, take all the 23-year-old barrels, you're going to wind up having to charge more for less whiskey. And so you allocate it. So many bottles to this state, so many bottles to that state. In each state, the distributor allocates so many to this store, so many to that store. Because there are only so many bottles. It's not like Bullet 10-year, which is what people call a shelfer. I dislike some of these terms, but you can find it. Just about anywhere you go, you can find it, or certainly the bullet, the regular bullet, the 90 proof orange label. There is so much of it, they produce so much and bottle it so, not young exactly necessarily, but they don't age it a huge amount. And so they have a lot of it and they can get it out to everywhere. An allocated bottle is one that's so rare, if not everywhere, then in a particular locality, that they only send so much out to the state. Then the distributor only sends so much out to the store, and they allocate it. And I went a long way around it, and I hope I didn't confuse you. That's not my intention. If I did, please ask in the comments, and I'll try to be less prolix and more informative. Then what's a dusty? That almost is self-explanatory. Say you have a bottle of Zizix bourbon. Zizix is a road out in the Mojave Desert in California. Zizix bourbon. Well, the manufacturer's suggested retail price, MSRP, is $200. It's a rare one. Well, you get into, there isn't much of it. It's $200. People don't particularly like it. Those who do, but those who don't. And so it sits on the shelf. And it gets old. And people eventually buy it, but some of them buy it, stick it on the shelf, never drink it. Or, various reasons. Anyway, it has gotten to be an old bottle, not just the whiskey in the bottle, but the bottle of whiskey itself has gotten to be old. It's gathered dust. And it's become a dusty. And there are people who hunt unicorns, people who hunt allocated bottles, people who hunt dusties. And whether it's changes in the whiskey over time, as even through the seal there is interaction with air, whether it's different grain, different yeast, different procedures, different aging times, what have you. There are people who will say that a dusty of X whiskey is better than the modern incarnation. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not. I remember Ernest Hemingway in his book on bullfighting, Death in the Afternoon. Muerte en la tarde is how I would translate it. That's not the one and only possible translation. It might be just muerte en la tarde. Or sometimes they'll make death masculine. El muerto en la tarde. Although it's a feminine noun in Spanish. But I've seen a t-shirt, it's been several years ago, which spoke of el muerto as opposed to la muerte. And apparently there are times where they want to personify death as masculine. But anyway, in that book, Ernest Hemingway talked about how it's X time, bullfighting was at its height, the matadors were the best, the bulls were the biggest with the sharpest horns, but in the next generation, everything was decayed and the bulls were smaller, the tips were sawed off and resharpened to make it easier on the matadors. And then in the next generation, that previous generation had been the greatest bulls, the greatest matadors, but this generation, and so on, and every generation is the most decayed, and every previous generation is the best. Well, maybe that's a factor in talking about dusties. I don't know. I will see one of those and try it about as often as I see and try that mythical Pappy 23. I say mythical. There really is a Pappy Van Winkle Family Reserve 23-year-old bourbon. It really exists. And somehow in the Longmire books by Craig Johnson, Lucian Connolly always has a bottle of Pappy 23. And how he does it, I don't know. Those things, you know, people snap them up if they ever find one. And there's a secondary market where they sell for hundreds and thousands of dollars. So how Lucian gets his hands on it, I don't know. Maybe it's poetic license. Who knows? Well, literary license? Because as good a writer as Craig Johnson is, I don't think anybody will accuse him of being a poet. But in my rambling fashion, Lord, I was born a rambling man. That came out better than I thought. You're saying, if that's better than he thought bad. Sometimes I can sing tolerably, acceptably. Other times I open my mouth and a frog would sound better. But in my rambling fashion, when I have gone way over where I intended to, because I'm covering 3 things in one video, I have talked about unicorns, allocated bottles, dusties. Again, if I've confused you, let me know in the comments. I will try to deconfuse you. Also, really quick before I quit, I saw tonight that this channel is up to 58 subscribers, the most it has ever been in the whole history of the channel. I know 58 is zip. Even small channels have a couple of hundred subscribers. For me, 58 is the best it's ever been. I thank every one of you 58 subscribers. However many of you have listened to this point, I thank you. I shamelessly stole it from Casey Allen of Beautiful Bourbon. You could have been doing anything else, and yet you watch this video. I do appreciate it. On that note, we put that there. We pick up the glass. Yes, I'm weird. You hadn't noticed? Where have you been? I say it frequently, so I won't now. I will not say that I don't suffer from insanity. I enjoy it. I won't say that. I will say, yeehaw!